Hello from the Trail Registry at Silver Creek Trail. Today, going to be hiking Red Cloud and Sunshine Peak, pair of 14ers. For a full trail guide of Red Cloud and Sunshine Peak, you can go ahead and check the link in the description below. So, I'm an idiot and forgot to film my intro this morning when I started the hike. So this is future me talking to past me right now, but after this point, will be chronological the rest of the video. These two 14ers are about 12.2 miles round trip with about 4,800 feet of elevation gain. So from Red Cloud, or from the trailhead to Red Cloud, it's just about 4.5 miles, and then it's about 1.5 miles further to get to Sunshine Peak. What future me is going to tell past me is that trail conditions for the first couple miles are pretty brutal on this trail. So a lot of loose dirt, a lot of downed trees, and it's hard to show those in the morning hours, but just expect that if you're coming here anytime summer of 2020. So I have hiked both of these before, and they are both dog-friendly peaks. Excited to retry both of these because the last time I hiked these, it was a pretty miserable experience, and I'll talk more about that later in the video. Your general route, this is shot from Handy's Peak, is going to be to go up here and then gain Red Cloud and then over to Sunshine and then back to Red Cloud, down through that valley. All right, now on to the normal trail guide. About a mile into the hike up Red Cloud and Sunshine Peak, and to catch you up to speed, we've basically just been working through the very small section of forest that this hike has, 1.25 miles, so that's pretty much all the tree coverage you're going to get from here all the way to both summits and back. So if there's storms or anything else, just keep that in mind. As of summer 2020, there's a bunch of downed trees on the trail. They're not a big deal, but they can be probably a nuisance if you have a dog. You got your first good look at Red Cloud, which is right there. And then you can actually look over to Sunshine. I'm gonna do that 100 times in this video right there. For those not familiar, Sunlight is a mountain 14er down in the San Juans in the Chicago basin. I always mix them up. So just get ready for that in this video. Look back, beautiful alpenglow on Handy's Peak right there, and you can see our whole approach really so far. Just under 2.5 miles into the hike, just around 12,000 feet. And from here, you've been basically working straight up this gully here, which I've been showing you. Trail conditions are not great. It's a lot of loose dirt, a lot of kind of scree that's not really solid, so your footing is never trusted. From here, you're gonna leave this kind of crappy area and head up around here to the upper basin. Eventually, you're going to want to go across the basin and up to the ridge of Red Cloud Peak. After almost exactly 2.5 miles, you're going to open up into this expansive basin here. Beautiful views of Red Cloud up there as well, and you can look back and see Handy's way overexposed. The trail is essentially going to snake around this rib here and then work up to the ridge point there, the saddle. So quiet and peaceful up in this basin. You can't hear anything except for the marmots. From here, you're essentially going to be switching back up this slope to gain the saddle, and then heading up to Red Cloud that way. About 3 miles into the hike, so about 1.5 miles to go till Red Cloud summit. Have about 1,800 feet of elevation, so do the math in your head. It's gonna be steep. Lingering snow here in the summer, but anything you hit in the morning is gonna be super crispy and firm, so you won't have to worry about it. If it makes you feel any better, you can bring micro spikes or hiking poles as a precautionary extra point of traction here. While we're talking about gear for this hike, you can check out all the gear I recommend for a 14er in the 14er packing video I'll have in the description below. In addition, you can check out all the gear I wear for this hike in the description below as well. But in general, it's going to be pretty easy for this one. Hiking boots, trail runner, and a backpack. And then an optional gear will be spikes, depending on the time of year, micro spikes that is, and hiking poles. Finally up on the ridge, or saddle, sorry. So we came down from there, and looking ahead, you can see your route pretty much up to the false summit and then the true summit of Red Cloud Peak. You may be thinking, wow, that little climb was tough, and it was, but you still have another one that's equally as hard. So take a look around. If the weather looks bad, if you're tired or whatever, this is a good place to kind of evaluate the situation, if you will. One thing you'll notice up here is there's a bunch of social trails. So, I mean, do your best to stay on the real one. I've blocked off a couple that are obvious. My opinion is that this right here is not the trail, because you can look, it goes to super steep dirt. They wouldn't build a trail like that. So when you have a choice, take this trail that's not as steep, because that's usually the more sustainable one if you think about over time what's going to last longer. So basically, you're gonna have a ton of switchbacks up this. They're short, they pack a punch, but it's very well defined once you get up the initial part from the saddle. But there's a lot of them. But positive, the views are pretty amazing in all directions. Whew, tough climb there. So there is someone in red on the summit right there. That's a false summit. Trail just goes there. Only about 300 feet to gain. And look at your views. Oh, amazing. And that looks back down to the saddle, which is out of view at this point. Beautiful views of Uncompahgre, which is the flat one on the right. You got Matterhorn, and of course Wetterhorn. That traverse in the middle is definitely on my to-do list. Looks awesome. Stretch. All right, summit of Red Cloud Peak. Technically my third time up here, since I've already been done this loop once. But part of the reason I decided to make this trail guide over is when I first made it, I have a really embarrassing clip.
Hi, I'm Juno, and welcome to the summit of Red Cloud Peak.
The views were amazing. I had a sunrise up here. It was just absolutely phenomenally beautiful. I summited Sunshine in the complete dark, so it's much nicer today to be able to see both and really enjoy both trails. From the trailhead to here, it was just about 4.7 miles, so a little bit over the 4.5 listed, and elevation was right on point. So I'm going to continue now on to Sunshine Peak, which I'll show you in a second. It's a very straightforward route. It adds another about 1.5 miles each way, and about 450 feet of elevation each way. So a nice little hike. And again, if you've summited Red Cloud and you want to go over to Sunshine, take a look at the weather, make sure everything's kosher, so you're not completely screwed, because this trail is 100% above tree line and absolutely no cover. So you definitely don't want to be stranded up here if a lightning storm rolls in. Good girl. Very unique summit with this red sand up here. Pretty. And then you got Just really good views in all directions. Junos are ready to rip. As I mentioned, it's really straightforward to Sunshine, well-defined trail, and it's about 1.5 miles each way. So after just one false summit, which is this one, you're gonna go down and see Sunlight Peak right there. So very obvious trail. Almost up to Sunshine Peak, and I wanted to point this out because it is a very common misconception that you can just go down this way. That's absolutely not true. There are big cliffs right on the other side of this, and it'll get you into a very bad situation. There are other ways that you can go down and up Sunshine Peak, but if you're not familiar with them, and they're not going to be covered in this video, then please just go back to Red Cloud. Even if you take one of the other two ways down, there's a lot of route finding, and again, a lot of cliff potential. So my recommendation, unless you're in a dire situation, which could be made even more dire if you get cliffed out, would be just to go back to Red Cloud and go back down the same way you came. Summit of Sunshine Peak. Second time up here, much better views than the last time I was here in the pitch black. From trailhead to here, just about 6.1 miles and just about 4,000 feet of elevation gain. So a nice little hike. And remember, on the way back, you have to gain another 500 or so feet, making this about 4,500 feet of total gain over the 12-ish miles for both of these peaks. So from Red Cloud to Sunshine, again, very straightforward. Nothing to even mention, honestly, just very obvious. There is a couple snowfields that we had that you saw. Those will linger into maybe late June, early July, depending on the snowfall, and you might need, micro spikes or hiking poles. I don't think a mountain axe would ever be needed unless you're in full-blown snow climb mode. Definitely a dog-friendly hike. Both of these peaks, Juno did fantastic, and yeah, just soaking in the views up here. Here, so you got Handy's Peak right there. You can see Grizzly Gulch approach going around. See the American Basin approach. You got Wetterhorn, Matterhorn, and Uncompahgre right there, and then looking up towards the Elks, which are kind of in the fog right now. That's going to wrap up our virtual trail guide of Red Cloud Peak and Sunlight Peak. For a full trail guide of both of these mountains, you can go ahead and check the link in the description below. If you want to watch more 14er videos, you can check the playlist I have for those in the description below as well. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss any future hiking related content. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next adventure.